So, hi Leah, that's great, cool. I'm really glad you have some time to talk today. After we briefly spoke in Frankfurt, following your appearance at the Alien.de conference, I realized I still had a few more questions, and I'm genuinely happy that you have a bit of time now to discuss them. Yeah, and I wanted to ask right away how it all started for you, what your first experiences were like, or when you first became aware that something was going on, something was happening that wasn't happening to others.
Hey Johannes, I'm definitely happy to see you again, and thank you for the invitation that we can talk together. To your question about when I noticed that something was different, I've always been different. So even as a child I was different, nothing about me was ever really safe. Back then, if my mom wanted to take something away from me, like a stuffed animal, and at the latest, by nap time I had it back again, even if it was all the way up on top of the closet. So there was always something different. Even as a child, I had medical senses. I communicated more telepathically and didn't understand that people couldn't hear me. Of course, I always tried to lead a relatively simple or normal life in my daily routine and to fit in. That actually worked pretty well up to a certain age. I think it started shortly after the onset of puberty. There were about 2 or 3 years of really just being human. That was when I truly experienced myself in the way a teenager typically does. However, in reality, I still much preferred climbing tall trees, meditating quietly, and simply enjoying peaceful moments by myself, because I had this deep sensitivity within me and always felt very strongly what other people were carrying in their energetic field. That means this high sensitivity had always been present, and with that I knew deep down that I was different. And people also reacted to me. They enjoyed being in my presence, and they still do today, and they are genuinely fascinated, truly intrigued by something they can't quite fully grasp or understand. But at the same time, when people spend more time with me and are more immersed in my energy field, so very close within my personal energy, it does something truly special to them. Namely, it leads them to look at their inner world, to look at their own issues. And that has to do with the fact that my frequency is different from that of a normal person. And with that, it was clear from the very beginning that there was something not quite normal about me.
Was that clear to your parents as well?
For the most part, yes, because I was always told, you must have been switched at birth and you're adopted even though we love you, something like that. And in fact, I really do look completely different from the rest of my family. There is a slight resemblance to my mother, but it's very minimal. Compared to my siblings, for example, who actually bear a stronger resemblance to each other than I do, you can notice a few distinct small features. That could come from my mother, but the rest is not familiar to me and also very atypical for my family's build, especially since I am very, very tall and almost 1.78 meters in height. And my body proportions are noticeably different as well. That means I have very long legs and a very long torso, both of which are significantly longer than average. I also have very long arms, which are almost 5 to 10 centimeters longer than those of most average people. And my fingers are especially long and very slender, as people often say when they notice them. And in addition, over the past few years, it has become increasingly and unmistakably apparent that even my physical appearance, including the features of my face, is gradually changing. My eye color changes over time, and even the size, shape, and position of my eyes themselves keep changing. And this is noticeably visible even to my community and to the people who interact with me. And it can also happen that during the interview, people notice that suddenly the eyes look different, the facial structures seem to rearrange themselves, and you just sit there and you say, wait a minute, did I really just see that? And yes, it happens, and it's normal for me that this happens.
Okay, and has your mother maybe also experienced things that are strange, paranormal, or, well, alien?
Around the time of my birth, specifically in quotation marks during my mother's pregnancy, there were quite a few paradoxes. Many unusual things happened. Among other things, She has some very strange memories, but they seem to have been overlaid. That means she reported that she thought they were her memories, but something about them just isn't quite right. And it was as if some kind of film had been carefully recorded over them, almost like a layer that obscured the truth about what really happened. In addition, at the very moment when my body was transferred into hers, the pregnancy became incredibly and unexpectedly complicated, and she simply wasn't allowed to get out of bed. So it was truly an absolute, extremely high-risk pregnancy right from the very moment I was actually in her body. And it was actually quite difficult for me to even stay inside her for any significant amount of time. The energy differences that arose during the process would have made me want to hatch out early almost all the time. But of course, that certainly wouldn't have been beneficial. Even though embryos are generally considered viable at around 6 months, it still would not have been beneficial, especially since during the course of the pregnancy, the ongoing connection to the mother was also very important and meaningful for me. And it was also absolutely necessary through the mother to have a vital bridge to humanity so that important information could be shared with me, information that helped me adapt and adjust here in this world and on this world, but not to be of this world. That means during the last 3 months of pregnancy, I had to be in her belly, in the womb, so that everything, every detail could be read in. And just a few weeks would not have been enough to complete this reading in, this upload of information.
I actually just wanted to ask this question later, but can you say something about who you are on a soul level? How did you come here, if you don't mind me asking?
That is a question that would definitely require a very complex and detailed answer from my side, honestly. Nevertheless, I will try to keep it as simple as possible. Officially, I am a member of the hybrid program that was initiated by the Galactic Federation of Worlds, which aims to connect the human species with species that exist outside of Earth. And contrary to what most humans generally believe, this hybrid program is essentially a kind of important bridge specifically designed to introduce humans into the broader galactic community. It also serves to bridge and harmonize the frequency differences that exist between the collective consciousness of humanity and the physical human body. With the help of extraterrestrial energies, the influence of extraterrestrial consciousness, and the guidance of advanced galactic civilizations, this process is made possible. And it's not like, for some people, I always feel that a certain fear arises when they hear about hybrids and hybrid programs. So this is all voluntary, and most actually all who have agreed to participate in the hybrid program, whether it's to bring hybrid children into the world or to donate genetics to the hybrid race, have already been part of the hybrid program before. That means usually they themselves are hybrids to a certain degree. So it's something that's actually very normal, but it happens outside of human awareness. It was done in such a way that people could continue their human experience as undisturbed as possible, and yet they can be gently but steadily introduced into the community. That's also how disclosure is happening right now. That means I came into being through this unique and fascinating hybrid program, and for my soul, it was truly the best possible choice to have the most profound and meaningful experiences, and at the same time to bring the greatest amount of consciousness and awareness to this planet. Genetics as a concept is not exactly what science on this earth currently understands, but scientists are now in the process, especially as they connect genetics with the rapidly evolving field of quantum field research, of discovering that there is, in fact, a significant connection point between consciousness, genetics, and the quantum field. And anyone who's interested in this subject should really take a look in that direction and consider getting involved with the study of quantum physics, and maybe build the bridge between quantum physics and genetics, and then you'll very much understand what I'm saying. It's very fundamental. You just have to connect the 2 points. That means genetics is consciousness. Genetics is not fixed, contrary to what people believe. Instead, the observer effect also comes into play here. That is, the one who observes, the one who sees, is the one who co-manifests matter. And from energy and light arise waves, frequencies, and particles. That means the atomic structure is formed by consciousness and by the one who observes it. And when a lower level of consciousness carefully observes genetics, it can generally only perceive and recognize the very lowest and most basic spectrum of the observed object. And when a higher consciousness, like people are now increasingly gaining consciousness and are able to allow and permit the quantum field, they are also able to perceive genetics as more complex than before. And this is truly the understanding I want to advocate for here, because in fact genetics is fundamentally shaped by consciousness. Being is manifested into matter. Genetics is the transmitter into the material world. It is the bridge between the quantum field and manifestation into the physical. And the hybrid program is, so to speak, there to create a fixed point for consciousness. So that consciousness comes to this planet in such a significant quantity, in a place where consciousness tends to be greatly reduced, diminished, and brought down to a minimum. The intention is that a maximum is achieved so that a person can incarnate here with the full, complete spectrum of consciousness of their choice and still remain understandable and translatable for humans and remain compatible. Another reason for the hybrid children program is worth mentioning. So here in this particular situation, the hybrid program was truly the best and most suitable choice for me to bring the specific consciousness I intended to Earth, to bring it here to Earth. Without a strong reduction being possible, this approach made the most sense for my purpose. Of course, a reduction still took place here as well. I too had to be gradually brought back online in stages and continue to wake up. And my team helped me a lot with that. We can gladly go into that later. That means, as a soul, this was the best starting point for me, the starting point for what I am doing here. I have gradually developed in such a way as to become a multidimensional personality here. That means I am fully aware that I exist on other levels. I am aware of metaphysics, and that is also one of the things I teach. Metaphysics, the physics of the soul. I help people to enter the reality factory and to bring the quantum field closer, as well as to understand quantum physics. And especially what I teach you is quantum physics, which in the next 3-4 years will become physics. That means here, this physics of the soul, how the cosmos works, how the structures are in the higher levels of density. People sometimes call them dimensions, but dimensions are and remain geometry. But sometimes I use the term so that people understand where I am, because dimensions are conceived by humans as a form of hierarchy. That means I start at 1 and go up to 12. But it's not like that, because that's how dimensions are. Transcendent, meaning everything is within everything. So every dimension, every individual level of consciousness, and every frequency level is included within all frequency levels. And that means what I was able to activate, also where the hybrid genetics specifically helped me, since I had small bridges already built in, helped me here on this earth in my own personal experience. Mechanism nonetheless to then activate this multidimensionality when the human in me, this human physical body, was fully prepared and ready to carry the consciousness. And that means that now here I can bring forth this multidimensionality of the soul. Everyone is multidimensional, but I am able to do it because of what was prepared here, to bring it to earth and make it accessible for all those who want to listen, who want to grow, and who want to move toward their greater being.
Okay, cool.
I carry this cosmic consciousness within me.
And you're talking about your team, and if you, as I understand it, you've been cared for and looked after by your team your entire life, right?
That's right. So when I say my team, I mean a group that consists of different levels, just as my consciousness is present on all those levels. In other words, my team is made up of various members, each existing at their own unique level, and together they form a diverse support system. Most of the support I received, especially at the beginning, came from the team on the extraterrestrial side, the ETs, who played a significant role in helping and guiding me during those early stages. Or aliens. Aliens is not really the term I would use here, but rather extraterrestrial in this particular context. That's what would be technically correct, because they are not from this earth. That was the whole time. My support team has always been there for me whenever genetic problems have arisen. They were there to help stabilize the energy field, but also to support me as a child to adjust, adapt, and get along here in this environment with the Earth and with what happens on Earth. And the physical team, so to speak, is actually located outside the Earth, specifically in Earth's orbit circling our planet. And those are also the very same ones who taught me, guided me, and mentored me after I learned the great truth that I came from the hybrid program and am, in fact, not human. The physical extraterrestrial team, these beings from beyond our world, were the ones who took me from Earth, brought me away from my home planet in order to train me, to teach me, and to help me develop over several years, providing guidance and support throughout that period. To enable me to have these profound and transformative activations, to truly recognize and deeply understand who I am, what my soul is, and how it co-creates and interacts with this physical body. They initiated in me the deep and foundational knowledge of genetics and metaphysics, so that, in the following years and months here on Earth, I was able to make this knowledge simply and understandably accessible to others.
When were you first taken or visited? When did the first physical contact take place? Was that already in early childhood, or was it a bit later?
So the physical contact happened in early childhood, but then it was discontinued. There was then a relatively long pause. From my perspective, it was a very cold and distant farewell. I was visited by 3 of my family members, and they said, "Lia, now is the time for you to be human and to anchor yourself here on Earth. And this is the last time you will see us for the next few years. But we are here, we are accompanying you, but it is the last time you will consciously remember it." And they said their goodbyes to each other in a relatively uncomplicated way. And after that, I didn't see them for many years, nor did I perceive them anymore. The telepathic connection was also broken from that moment on. And at first, I experienced a kind of deep loss trauma, which my family then had to compensate for because they didn't know where this sadness and the nightly crying were coming from. Where is my family? Of course they don't understand because they're my family. Then a child says, "Where is my family?" That's a bit unusual, isn't it? That means there was definitely contact here, and then for quite a while it was gone. And then I was thoroughly prepared for the contact, first telepathically again and again in meditations on the astral plane, energetically at night. And then the next contacts came on the physical level, but they always, without exception, had to be erased from my consciousness, so that I could continue to develop in a healthy and undisturbed manner without any interference. Because what many people don't quite understand is that such an official contact with an ET disrupts your spectrum of experience so much that very few are able to continue living their lives as before afterwards. And for example, they can become almost completely obsessed with this particular topic, and as a result, important experiences and growth cycles are simply just bypassed. That means they simply don't get experienced. And that's exactly what the ETs, especially those who love you and also those who love me, try their utmost to avoid. That means at that particular point in time, the memory, the experience, the meeting had to be completely erased so that I could continue to develop and grow undisturbed in the direction that I truly wanted to go, or should go. This is a perspective of perception that one can adopt here. But what you need to know and truly understand is that everything you experience is your reality. That means, quite literally, there is no outside world. And even your family members, even the extraterrestrials, even politics, even all the people you encounter, all of that is actually you, whether close or distant, whether familiar or unfamiliar. That means at that time I decided that I wasn't quite ready yet back then to bring the contact to a fully conscious level. So I agreed with a deep, profound knowing of my soul that it was better to erase this experience. And that's the problem with so many ET contacts. They happen regularly, often, and continuously to prepare the genetics, to prepare the consciousness for the day when you can truly come to us and be on this earth And if it's a preparation process in the genetics, that means, for example, if the mother was prepared and this is then passed on to the child through genetics, for instance, and the child carries this knowledge within themselves. So there are so many complex things at play here that ensure that whether something is erased or not. If something is not completely erased or removed, then the reason, or rather the purpose, is that it is reasonable and makes sense for it to remain conscious in the mind. That means official contacts that do not disappear from consciousness are intentionally set so that a person acts as agreed upon. For example, it means going to the press and talking about their abduction, or like me, for example, stepping forward, for instance, and becoming an ambassador. And when I finished my training and was asked to now go my own way again, to return to Earth, it was a request, but it was also, how should I put it, a directive. I could have stayed. It was also a question: you can stay here if you wish, but we kindly ask you to go to Earth and to share the knowledge, the wisdom that is far too great, that is within you, deep inside, because you know too much, far too much to keep it to yourself. You do not have the right to withhold it from others. We do not expect you to be an ambassador, but we sincerely urge you to be one if you genuinely want people to be helped and supported, because the day will come when people need to know that you are there for them and that you are real. And we have prepared you for that. But you decide when you return to Earth whether you will take on this role or you stay with us. But you cannot go to Earth with the knowledge you carry and continue as before. And what did I do? Exactly what we're doing now. That means I stepped forward and I share this knowledge as freely as I possibly can. And I am willing to do any interview, no matter the format or the audience. And I am also willing to go to congresses and conferences, whether they are large or small, and to share my truth, so that everyone can benefit the most from what I have to say. And I'd like to mention just a little something here, because sometimes people ask questions when they can't yet see the whole picture, or when they are still searching for answers themselves. I'm often asked if I am actually an ET, to which I always say very clearly and directly, I've spent most of my time living here on Earth, which means that I am in fact an Earthling. However, I'm also a hybrid. If I am truly an ET, then why was I sent here to Earth by the Federation to be an ambassador? And if that's the case, why don't they provide me with the financial means, for example, to support my life here? Why don't they support me? And I put this question out there openly and from my heart back to your heart. Why could that be the case? Because I chose to work with the system and with people who are part of the system. And there are rules of the game that we all have to follow. And there are many ETs here just like me. However, unlike me, they were not born on Earth, but instead they come from the stars and they arrive here as step down. That is, as those who have descended, they land with their ship, step out of the ship, and begin to live their lives. They have to earn their money. They have to fully integrate themselves into the population, have to go into the jobs and positions to which they were called, to which they were sent, have to work closely with people there and maintain the best possible cover. And the world is under surveillance. Bank transactions are monitored. There are credit cards if you're only a short-term step down and stay for just 2-3 days or a week. Then you get credit cards with which you can withdraw money from any ATM in the world in any currency. But if someone like me, who is permanently stationed here, who is building a life here, has friends and family here and people they love, if that person were to act like that, then sooner or later the great focus of people who are asleep under hypnosis, like the military, police and bank officials, would have turned to me and started asking questions about where the money comes from. And I can explain where it comes from. That means I have to play by the system here, and that's why I have to put a price on some of my services. But I always give everyone huge discounts. No one pays the full price, but I can't do it for free. And I also want to mention something here for those who have children at home and teenagers. Most of what I receive from the courses and from the growth that I give to you ends up in a big project school, a free online school for children and teenagers, which provides a truly holistic spiritual education for kids in all areas: metaphysics, meditation, yoga, but also important topics like anti-bullying, etc. Against bullying, against all these things, classical coaching, psychological counselors, psychologists. I'm trying to create something big for everyone here, to build a globally accessible school with the resources available to me. And every course, every participant supports and contributes to this project. So for those who want to visit my website, I invite you to see it from a different perspective.
It's probably being shown on your screen right now at this very moment. Okay.
It was just really important to me that we mention this specifically in this context because people tend not to see the entire picture. And I want, or I wish, to show the entire picture. And yes, if you want, feel free to keep asking questions. I'll give you all the answers. Everything and everything to you, dear Johannes.